Crack open that bottle of wine. Grab your favorite glass, pour a couple of fingers of scotch in it. Get that stick, light it, and blow. It's time to hang with Steel Sharpened Steel After Dark.
Hey, Sharpies. We are sipping and slipping in an After Dark episode.
Yes.
And it's perhaps appropriate, Samuel. That was my voice on the After Dark, so it's not an affectation. It's just I also happen to be a little congested, so the natural bass is reverberating a little more bassy than it might otherwise be.
That's his quiet storm voice. He lying. He doing that on purpose. Yeah. Grab a stick. Light it.
Grab a stick. Pour a couple fingers of scotch in it. Hey, everybody. Thank you, first of all, for the Sharpies who hop in here before the show, well before the show, 30 minutes before the show. That is Big Brother Samuel Levon and Big Brother Anthony Turner. Big Brother Don't Start None and Big Brother Won't Be None coming in here on the tails of each other at 4 and 4:01, making sure. So we appreciate that.
Shout out to Summer Cutie, and you are right. That is some baby making music. Mm-hmm.
It is some baby making music, baby. So we have a week, y'all. What a week we have had. And as we said in the intro, the crazy thing to me is that even though, and I'm gonna give a little bit of deference to some of the talking points, it is true that no U.S. service people were killed, despite the fact that this insecure platform was used in order to propagate these war plans. We're gonna step through some of these tweets and chats, whatever, to give an idea, because anybody who's being honest with themselves must surely realize that these are attack plans, war plans. That's a distinction without a difference. There is no definition of what a war plan is. But in terms, what we can do is we can take a look at what normally constitutes a classification that would make something classified or make something top secret, and see if those elements exist within the thread. Hint, they do. So everything that is being said by these players in this overreaching signal chat, it's basically just bullshit. And among the most egregious I have found is Tulsi Gabbard, who surely knows that she's lying, but unlike the CIA director who really has a bee in his bonnet, she just gives this flat affect. Like, I'm not giving you anything. I'm a Stepford DNI, and I'm just gonna say words, and they're gonna come out with no hint of emotion. You're not riling me.
These are not the text messages you're looking for. Like, it's not working.
She is implacable. That is what one might say, that she is implacable under the withering inquisition by both the Senate and the House. And I have to give credit. People have been waiting, and Joy, I want you to hop on this when you catch your breath. People have been waiting for Democrats to kind of hop into some shit. And this week, these Dems did not hold back. More of this, please.
Yes. Again, I'm here for Pete. Buttigieg is coming out with, this is a fuck up. I think that was maybe one of those moments where, into the silence, somebody goes, yeah, and then everybody goes off. Pete threw the chair into the room. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, all of the Democrats are like, oh, we can actually do this. Because as we've mentioned before, my personal opinion is that the Democratic organization, if you will, the business of it, is too timid, too focused on saving face, on keeping some level of civility. And I get that. But we're not turning the other cheek. As a matter of fact, the whole idea of turning the other cheek is misunderstood and misrepresented by people who think they know the Bible, because what he was really doing was making the person who slapped him treat him as an equal. Had nothing to do with being generous and kind and slap me again. It's like, oh, you slapped me this way. Now you got to use the respect hand if you want to slap me again. Do it. I double dog dare you. That's what that's about. And so, sorry for the tangent, but I'm excited that I'm seeing people with bigger platforms, with different followings, because not everybody follows or honestly even respects the squad, but you're seeing more folks come out and say, this is egregious, we got to stay on this. I like that some of our pundits, your Matt Owls of the world and your what's the little alpha's name, who I'm blanking on him right now,
Roland Martin.
I adore him. I do. I just couldn't remember his name for a second. I've seen him in real life.
You said the little alpha, though.
Little alpha. He's so cute. He's adorable with his little suit on. But I like what Roland Martin's been doing as well.
Yeah, I credit the cojones. And one of the things that I really like about, especially some of the House members that were jumping in, that committee was populated with veterans. So everybody who was talking was able to say, when I served, if I had done this, this would happen. How can you honestly say this wasn't classified? And they're just unrelenting. One of the things that I found a little frustrating about how they did outside of the committee, one of the guys who was very forceful in the hearings went on to Fox, and the Fox guy obviously had an agenda. And one of the things that he pulled out was, I'm trying to see if you have some moral consistency. So when we lost 13 lives in the Afghanistan withdrawal, did you call for the resignation of the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? And he said, well, that's an apple and oranges issue. But the guy kept peppering him. And my critique of these Democrats who have now found a spine, you guys need to prep better, because the right always has a deflecting talking point that they can stick to. And generally speaking, unless they're confronted by a Buttigieg, unless they're confronted by somebody who's like Rachel Maddow, who is just on her feet thinking fast and always has an answer prepared, they will slip into that and they will stick with it and they will come out with the win. So this guy asked, had you called for the resignation of the chair? And he said apples and oranges, but what he could have said was, neither did I call for the resignation of Hegseth when a military aircraft collided with a civilian aircraft, resulting in the death of 3 military personnel and about 100 American citizens. I didn't call for his resignation there either. This is different, and this is how it's different. Because this leak, the fact that you invited this person, exposed that your entire intelligence apparatus was willing to use an app that they should not have been using to discuss information. You can say it wasn't a war plan, and we're going to go through these messages. The second thing is that the fact that that chat existed beyond the fact whether or not anything happened because of the chat, the fact that the chat existed speaks to an underlying lack of ability in the persons to whom we are entrusting our most sacred pieces of information that affect our national security.
I think I'm lagging, so I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but I'll add one more thing to that, is that we keep thinking that they are only incompetent. They're incompetent, but they're also devious, because as was said by a few people in the intelligence industry, them using Signal at all was potentially so that they could not have discoverable discussions later on. When we start looking for war crimes in a couple of years, Signal disappears in like 30 days or something. And so they've had their discussion, but there's no evidence of it. And the servers are empty too, because that's why people use Signal and WhatsApp to encrypt and decrypt stuff. But them not knowing how to lock it down and them letting anyone other than the admin add people. I went to Ghana and we had a WhatsApp chat. I couldn't just add somebody to it without talking to the girl that opened it up in the first place. Our WhatsApp for vacation was more secure than this Signal chat. And that's the real problem. Well, both of those are the real problem, because why are you out there in the first place? And we're not discussing this in the offices where there's recordings, and why you don't know how to do an admin only quick toggle on Signal. Like, what's wrong with you? If you don't know how to use and secure it, you shouldn't have been using it in the first place. And that is the crux of what people are saying. He should resign, you know?
Well, and the other piece of it is that there's the Presidential Records Act.
Mm-hmm.
These things have to be preserved. So if you're not preserving them, that in of itself is a violation. You're all public servants. So all these communiques need to be preserved. And Pete Buttigieg made a really good point about how you can't even receive information that is classified on your regular laptop. You have a
and
classified
these people text them
laptop.
from Russia.
Correct. You have a classified device or set of devices, and you have a non-classified set of devices. And you can't just copy it from one and paste it to the other. You've got to go through. So this is Pete Hegseth looking at classified information and then just texting from the screen into the group.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, you said it, one of the persons in the chat was literally in the Kremlin meeting with Putin until 1:30 in the morning during this frame of time when the operation was taking place. And if you think that the Kremlin did not have access to a person's unsecured personal phone that comes into the Kremlin, you are extra confused. They live for stuff like that.
They live for stuff like that. You know what I think is really happening is, you have this, and this, what's funny is this does feel like a Marvel cartoon, meaning that there is some shadowy figure in the back running everything, but the people that they have employed to run their mastermind plan are imbeciles. So you end up with like AIM, if y'all are familiar with Tony Stark's alter company, they never can get anything right. And yes. And so somebody understood that putting things on Signal would keep them from being discoverable. Somebody said, go ahead and do that, and it'll be okay. But the people that they said to let do that didn't know how to do it. If they had, not all of them are idiots, but the ones in that group chat were. The ones that above them, and there are people above them, please understand that, were probably like smacking their head and then just probably like walked away, deny it all, say it never happened, and we'll see if it works. Because what's your other option?
But let's be clear. The Secretary of State was in that chat. The Secretary of Defense was in that chat. The Director of National Intelligence was in that chat. The Director of the CIA was in that chat. It's not too many people above them. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, but the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs not only reports to the President, also reports to the Secretary of Defense.
You assume that the person above them is in the government. I'm not talking about
them. You are right. I'll take that one. Kremlin.
And everybody you label is goofy. Like, none of them are qualified for what they're doing.
No.
And so it's a bunch of people with badges on that says, I be the man. What are you doing? What are you doing? What you had in that chat group was a journalist and a bunch of sycophants.
Oh yeah.
Period.
Absolutely. And let's take a look. We're going to step through some things right now. We're 15 minutes in. We've got a good head of steam going on. So let's take a look at what we're actually talking about. So these are the two cats who are most centrally involved in where we are right now. So you've got Hegseth, who is the SecDef, and you've got the Oompa Loompa. So
right. So this incompetent and incontinent. I'm probably going to jail for that.
Not incompetent and incontinent. That is amazing. And for those of you who are fans of Severance, both of those words start with N, which took me to any, which took me to, I don't know where the outies are, but I have to wonder. It's the innies and the Houthis. It's not the innies and the
Oh my God.
So let's take a look. Here, here is our creation. So the Houthi PC small group. Now, it's 19 members in this small group, which is kind of crazy. And this is where it says Michael Waltz added you to the group. This is the first text thing that Goldberg received that says you've been added to the group.
They can't even say that they didn't know how to work. Like, they can't claim like gross indifference or gross incompetence. Say we didn't even know how to work it. We just thought that it was magically encrypted or whatever, because it says disappearing time is set to 1 week.
For 1 week.
So you knew how to set the time for these messages to disappear.
Well, and here's the thing. This clown Waltz went on Laura Ingram's show and basically was saying, you know how sometimes in your phone you have a contact, but the name doesn't match the phone? Because her question legitimately was, because he's calling him a scumbag. He's calling him a disgraced journalist. Why would you have this person's phone number in your phone? And so he says, well, I didn't. I must have had the wrong phone number with the wrong contact or whatever. And it's like, bruh, who are you talking to? Do you really think that is going to fly? When you're sitting here, you are a high-ranking government official who's involved in war plans. You create this group to keep the group apprised of the ongoing discussion, and you add someone. You know, Trump tried to say an assistant added, but look, unless the assistant had your phone, it says who added the guy to the group. It says Mike Waltz added you to the group, not Alex Wong or anything else. It says Mike Waltz added you to the group. So we're going to continue. Here are the three biggest players. I'm not even including Gabbard or any of the other folks, or the CIA director, Ratliff. I'm not even including him. So you got Mike Waltz. You've got in the center, you've got Pete Hegseth, and then you have J.D. Vance. Now, J.D. Vance is important. I've specifically screenshot a couple of the things that he had to say, both because it shows a couple of fractures within his obeisance to Trump, and also that he's just a mean little shit that is a horrible person. So you can see in these text messages right here, VP, building collapse, had multiple positive ID. Pete Carilla, the IC, amazing job. Now, let's talk through. How are we saying that there aren't people who are identified as targets? They didn't specifically use the name, but you will see in other text messages, they talk about the target. They talk about the target's girlfriend. They talk about the target being in the right place at the right time. So you are identifying a person just as clearly as if it were a redacted document where you were saying, you know, unindicted co-conspirator one. It is a known who they were talking about within the community. It doesn't matter that they didn't say it. They were identifying a specific target with information that could be confirmed, because obviously this person who is a target is a major target. Team update. Time now, 11:44. Weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch. You have a time and a specific confirmation that things are about to begin. I don't know how that's not a war plan. Then you got J.D. Vance squinting like he's trying to hold in a fart. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, to send a message. But I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. So as long as we're keeping it all together, we're keeping our eyes on the prize. So here's the definition. This is what was spread in the chat after Goldberg was added. Now,
No.
I presume, I don't use Signal, but I presume it works similarly to WhatsApp, which means if you're added to a chat, you might not be able to see what came before you. You might only be able to see stuff that happened since you were added to the chat. So after he added this person, go ahead, Joy.
I was going to say, and to your point about Signal and how it works, I think that I want to say Samuel said earlier that WhatsApp created the app for Signal. Like it's a similar, either similar or a subset or a junior company, whatever you want to call it. But I know whenever I add anybody to a group chat, it says this person is not in your contacts. Would you like to add them? So it goes through some like, are you sure? No, are you sure? So even the phone was probably trying to tell them, hey, bro, you fucking up. You sure you want to do this? And somebody had to hit yes multiple times to get Goldberg into that chat.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Everybody saw that he added someone and nobody said, hey, who is this? Right.
Correct. And the thing that's crazy is it wouldn't surprise me that some engineers from WhatsApp, either during the process when WhatsApp was being acquired by Meta or Facebook at the time, jumped ship, just like people left Twitter when it was purchased by Musk. And then, you know, he pulled some of them people over to create Blue Sky. So it wouldn't surprise me that they operate very similarly. I just don't use the app. So here's our explicative text. Team establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis, particularly for over the next 72 hours. So you're putting a time frame of when the attack is going to take place. You're telegraphing that the special importance is over the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, so he's putting out the name of someone. He's not an undercover agent, but he is a CIA operative, is pulling together a Tiger team at Deputy's Agency Chief of Staff level, following up on the meeting in the sit room this morning, situation room for action items, and we'll be sending that out later this evening. You reference the fact that there was a discussion in the situation room about these actions. Surely you're not saying that the situation room wasn't discussing war plans, because the specificity of what needed to happen was discussed in the situation room, and the Cliff's notes were discussed in this group. So that's bullshit indicator number one. Please provide your best.
You can say for reference. Some of my friends have said, but the thing that's they've talked about. The liquor's getting to me. For reference, several people have talked about the kind of things that caused them to be dishonorably discharged, written up, etc. Around security. One of them left some stamps out, period. Not any special stamp, left stamps out on the table and got written up for it. Another one called his girlfriend from a secure location and got dishonorably discharged. And they weren't talking
that information. Just because he made that phone call, which I could be identifiable, he got discharged. Yes. So here's the last sentence. Please provide the best staff POC. You know that's not persons of color. That's got to be person.
Point of contact.
Point of contact. There you go. For your team, for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days and over the weekend. Thanks. So that's the framing of this series of texts that we're about to see. So here's this thing. So Joe Kent, another person, one of the 19, there's nothing time sensitive. Driving the timeline will have the exact same options in a month. So again, the Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they use against the Houthis, but that's a minor factor. I'll send you the unclassified data we pulled on BAM shipping. You're saying that you're going to send unclassified data. It might not be in this chat. It might just be in another thing, but you are referencing classification status in this chat. And here's the CIA director. From CIA perspective, we're mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage on Houthi leadership. Again, you're identifying persons who are subjects of interest in these plans. It's about taking out Houthi leadership. Houthi leadership are known, and to the extent that they might even be reported in some isolated incidents. A lot of people don't know Houthis. They certainly don't have the profile of Al Qaeda or Bin Laden
Right.
or anything like that, or any of the bigger figures, even in the aftermath of Bin Laden's death, at the hands of Barack Obama.
Right. You talking about
I,
keeping something secret. We didn't know that people had left the States until he came on the screen and said,
he
he's
did.
dead.
And we've thrown the body in the ocean, so it's all
yes. Good. So can't nobody even go and worship it.
Yeah, and there weren't any emojis shared.
No.
And
no,
you know, I think that's why I think he was still using a BlackBerry when he was in office.
They took his BlackBerry as soon as he got in office. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But one of the things about BlackBerries, which were the de facto device, it doesn't allow apps. BlackBerry is a real locked off system. So you couldn't upload Facebook onto that generation of BlackBerries. It was peer-to-peer, super encrypted, blah, blah, blah. And because it was just a communication device, it was a lot more locked down in terms of pathways, because basically you're just
talking. And they still took it.
Yeah. So there's that. That's that thing. Hegseth, if you think we should, to Hegseth from JD Vance, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. And then he says, let's just make sure our messaging is tight. If there are things we can do upfront to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Again, leaning into the oil, but also,
you don't want the vice president of the United States saying out in public, I hate bailing out Europe again. That is not good for any form of diplomatic relations whatsoever. That's not something you ever want to admit you said, but it's in print. And I'm so glad he screenshot all of this to shut them up.
Well, of course. And that's the thing. He wasn't even sure it was real until a couple of days later. He saw all the traffic. And then, of course, he had all of the ability to screenshot everything. And he screenshotted everything, even the stuff that is banal, even the stuff that they didn't really share. But it looks like after they came out and, figured, oh, well, it's been a week, all these messages are gone. Well, did you not believe the man who was writing the article contemporaneously did screenshots? And I'll tell you what, there's an app called Confide where if you try to make a screenshot, it kicks you out of the chat.
They're not using that,
they're not using that.
And Sam had a question here, like, why is Signal even an app that any of us can download from the App Store? Because it's just like WhatsApp. As Bob was saying, like, Signal was created. It's a nonprofit, but with a foundation that was started with a $50 million donation from Brian Acton, who was the co-founder of WhatsApp. And this is a messaging platform, just like Discord. Yep. It's just a way for people to do something, hopefully without it being tracked by anybody else. But you see where we are.
So, continuing on. We are prepared to execute. And if I had the final go or no vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as two things: restoring freedom of navigation in the Suez Canal, a core national interest, which JD Vance points out, not in the threads that we have here, but he points out we only have about 5% of our traffic. Most of the traffic that goes through the Suez Canal is European serving. And to reestablish deterrence, which Biden cratered. That's bullshit, but whatever. But we can easily pause, and if we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC. I welcome other thoughts. Well, I don't know if they're using Confide now. They shouldn't be using Confide either. Sorry, there we
go. So Phil, friend of the show, he says, everything about the Conspillage debacle makes my skin crawl. I literally test, develop, and sustain the systems these assets are supposed to use to communicate. He's retired military, so he knows exactly what he's talking about. And he, like a whole lot of people that I know that are either military or former military, are like, this is tantamount to, punching the president in the face. Like, you don't get away with this. There is no, my bad, what about this? Well, it's not that bad. And the defense of, well, nobody died sounds very much like, what was that show? The Hangover. But did you die?
Yeah. That's did you die?
That's not how we justify something.
No.
I wish you could see my screen because you got frozen all up in the camera.
So, moving on. So this is in the aftermath of his comments about Europe. This is Hegseth responding to J.D. Vance. I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, all caps. But Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. As I heard it, the president was clear, green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement. An example, if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. And Pete Hegseth agree.
Mm-hmm. Wild. You know, and like Sam said, they shouldn't be using apps that are commercially available. He's right. Like he can just go to Signal and get added to a chat right now. And, Chan, seems like there should be stuff that they have their own end-to-end encrypted apps. And here comes Phil again, like they do. DCGS, NIE, MNT, Profit Light, Centrix. They're supposed to be using these things, like he said, that are designed to be protected and that I cannot get on my iPhone 14. Okay? But they out here using Signal because they was trying to be sneaky and they fucked up. That's what it is.
To be fair, Profit does sound like something that Islamic extremists might use in order to conduct their group chat. Profit Light is like 50% less jihad. And yes, I know jihad just means struggle. It doesn't mean violent attack. I get it. I'm just saying. I'm using the nomenclature of the idiots who repeat it. And that's a term folks understand and know.
Right.
Back to the gripping drama that is Signalgate. Team update. And here we go. 11:44, weather is favorable. We are a go. F-18s, again, another peg about classification. Do you specifically name specific instruments that are going to be used in the confrontation? You're saying you're launching F-18s. This is the first strike package. So, very specific, 30 minutes after we are a go, at 12:15, you have launched F-18s, and it is the first strike package. An hour and 30 minutes later, the first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. Now you brought in a second tier of armament. Mm-hmm. You started with the F-18s. Now you've got drones that are MQ-9s. About close to 30 minutes, 25 minutes later, more F-18s launch. This is the second strike package. 5 minutes later, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. And at 15:36, just about an hour and 15 minutes later, the second strike starts, also first sea-based Tomahawks launch. Three different weapon systems, multiple tiers of attacks.
Now, Phil mentioned something here. People are missing something very simplistic. These jerks are using an unauthorized comm system to chat and fist bump and say things that cannot be said over an authorized system because those are reviewable. We actually mentioned that earlier in the show because I know you got in a little bit late, but I want to bring it up again. This is what they're doing, and they did it on purpose. The reason they went to, as Samuel said, the Payless app was because they thought we can get away with this, and they had been somewhere along the line, somebody said, if you don't want anybody to know what you're talking about, use something like Signal. And they were like, okay, we'll do that. And Waltz makes this whole chat, but they don't know how to not add people. And he had to have that number in his phone, or he had to completely ignore. You know what it probably was? I wonder if this is what happened. He didn't have anybody's number. And he just started adding phone numbers. So every number said, do you want to add this person's not in your contacts? Do you want to add them? And he did it over and over again. And he didn't realize that he misdialed or mistyped that number and was like, I'm giving him a lot of credit. Do you want to add me? Add him too.
I don't believe for a second any of his dialogue about Jeffrey Goldberg. Jeffrey Goldberg is a person who perhaps at one time, because he used to be DNI, Jeffrey Goldberg is a respected, despite what they're saying now, journalist. I venture to say Jeffrey Goldberg probably called him for an interview at some point.
Yeah.
And he saved the phone number because he wanted to recognize the phone number if Jeffrey Goldberg ever called again. And he probably has it as Jeffrey Goldberg, and then in the company, The Atlantic, he probably has that. So I'm not saying he meant to add Jeffrey Goldberg to this. I don't believe that. But the idea that he didn't actually have, thank you, the fact that he did not have the wherewithal to correctly, and he may have just typed in JG or whatever. I don't know if there's another JG who should have been added to the chat. Somebody asked him that question. Laura Ingram asked him that question. Well, who were you trying to add when you accidentally added Goldberg? And he didn't have an answer.
I know nothing.
He did not have an answer. Mm-hmm. It's a dumpster fire. All right, so here's the last little bit. Walt had typed something that was indecipherable. So he says, "What?" He does his best Little John impression. Typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. Again, you are using identifying information. Their top missile guy. We have positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. J.D. Vance, excellent. Michael Waltz, yellow fist emoji, American flag, fire. That's what we're doing. In the midst of
Phil's got another point here. It's like he meant can't. We can't wear hearing aids in certain areas because they transmit on a broad spectrum. We couldn't have Pokemon Go back in 2013 because it's a tracking and macking. So again, you're using a commercial app that you don't technologically understand, that has not been cleared by the checks and balances that Musk is trying so hard to get rid of. But you did it on purpose because, as somebody else mentioned, it was outlined in outlined in Project 2025 to do this to avoid Freedom of Information Act requests on public records.
But in addition to it not being cleared, the DOD specifically warned against using it. You were going against government guidelines in choosing to use this app. 19 of y'all.
Another reason they should all be fired. All of them.
Every single one. Now, of course, it's not going to happen. One wonders if anyone is actually going to face any consequences given how Trump does things. Now, I don't know. Drop in the chat, Sharpies, out of the people, because it's not going to be Hegseth unless that's a tough one. I don't see Hegseth going down for this, but I could see Waltz going down. Waltz is perhaps
because he created it and he added the journalist.
And he is the least senior out of the parties. If there were going to be somebody who would be held accountable, I would imagine it would be him. I am still super not a fan of Tulsi Gabbard anyway. She strikes me as a person who is the most likely to be like 100% a Russian asset. 100%.
Which is probably why nothing happened to her.
Which is why it's not going to happen to her. But Waltz, he did not perform well on the talk shows. His excuses sound thin and fake. And so if somebody is going to be held accountable, I would say it's that, because he's already said it was his responsibility. Trump tried to say it was Alex Wong, the assistant, but that's BS. Yeah. No,
I don't believe that.
Liz agrees.
The thing that gets me though is it should. I think you never underestimate the Democrats' ability to fumble, but it should be something that we never quit talking about, that is always brought up as they cannot protect us. They are not keeping, and it should turn. I mean, most former military people I can't believe this is happening, and their refusal to take accountability is telling. But then to everybody's point, everybody rational, this whole cabinet should be fired for going along with this. Somebody should have had the sense to say, even if somebody had asked, is it cool that we're using this? That person could say, I tried to tell him, or something.
And,
nobody.
And Goldberg brought up that specific point in an interview, saying nobody, actually, I take that back. I think it came up in the congressional questioning. Nobody said, yo, should we be on this app discussing this? Nobody even had a question about it. Wait, put that back up. DeSantis? Oh, come on. And then you have to have a special election for governor?
I don't know if they
Trump
want that.
DeSantis.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is like they're out of minions.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, Phil. Go ahead, Joy. You can put it up. The ultimate OPSEC and InfoSec failure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yet here we are in a situation where we are debating whether or not, and Pete Hegseth, no one was texting war plans. Oh, for real? Oh, okay. How about I share the texts? And then poor little Caroline Levitt, she is so far out of her depth, talking about the Atlantic today actually admits that they lied. Their headline says attack plans instead of war plans, which means what? Press Secretary Barbie, what does that, you tell me what the difference is. Times, ordnance, targets. Times, ordnance, targets. If you think that Russia, let's just take it off the man on the street, because I agree. The second talking point that went out after the lie was nobody knows who the Houthis are. And we even saw that in the text thread, that they didn't think anybody knew who the Houthis were. But let's leave that to the side. Regular American folks who were not invited to the group chat wouldn't have been able to crack signal encryption. But we're not talking about regular American folks. We're talking about Israeli defense, the Russians, you're talking about North Korea, you're talking about Iran, you're talking about state actors who have waged various levels of cyber campaigns against this country for decades. And if you think that those people with their own intelligence apparatus do not know who these people are that you're talking about, you're deluded. I don't need to know who the target is for it to be dangerous. It's dangerous when they know who the target is. And they can. And
it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that, because yes, it is dangerous. Everything you said, adding on top of that, again, our allies who are already pissed off with us in general, because we keep shitting the bed. Our allies was like, I can't and won't tell America anything because they're going to be out here chatting it out to the world. We have become the loose lips that sink the ships. And so nobody's going to play with us because we are the P-boy on the playground. We smell a mess. Back to
we a pariah.
Right.
Like babies with pacifiers. It's very, very horrible that we find ourselves in this situation. And again, it speaks to the absolute stunning lack of character of all of the persons who were involved. Not one of them has said, you know what, this was bad and I need to step away. I shouldn't have allowed this to happen. I think Rubio is probably the closest person with an actual conscience that was included in that chat, and a bit of self-awareness. And he's already, even though he's been tasting the salt from that person's sack ever since he defeated him in the primaries in 2016, I think you need... Go ahead.
Thank you for explaining this. So earlier, Phil said that a loot report was tossed out into the universe
for all to fish for. You're frozen, Joy. And so then he went on to explain what salute means, because it looked like maybe he was just doing an all caps on that. But it means size. So you're talking about perhaps the size of the attack that is imminent, the activity, the specific thing that is going to happen, the location of where it is going to happen. So the girlfriend's apartment building, uniform, the time of the attack, which is time stamped in the chats, and the equipment being used, which is F-18s, the MQ-9s, and the Tomahawks. Why does Tom Cunningham know these things? Oh, because it was put in an insecure chat, which was invited and shared to a journalist who had the wherewithal to make sure that people understood that this was what he was experiencing. That's why I know. I shouldn't know, but that is why I know. And thank you, Phil, for your expertise. You're an invaluable contribution to this particular episode. Joy will be back with us shortly, but Chan says Rubio is the dog and that this is fine meme. You know, I don't know. He looked so uncomfortable in the Volodymyr Zelensky meeting. He looked like he was disgusted to be in the presence of these folks that he was sitting with. And I find myself challenged to understand how Hegseth with a straight face can, on one side of his neck, talk about what Biden did and how we were, under Biden, we were fools. And now, because of your own F up, the entire world is looking at you with the stink eye. Except Putin, who's laughing. Except Pyongyang, who's laughing. Except Beijing, who's laughing. And Elon Musk, you know, Tesla has been having a little bit of an up and down. They actually, the stock price recovered a teensy little bit, but it's still obviously very volatile. And now Trump has confirmed a 25% tariff on every automobile coming into the country. And he says no tariffs at all on cars that are made in the country, but you're tariffing the parts that are necessary to make the cars in the country. So there's still going to be an escalation in price. Just because you're not putting it on the sticker price doesn't mean that the sticker price isn't going to increase, because companies have to pay more to get the parts in, and they pass those costs on to the American public. We're going to have Joy back in just a few moments. Anthony says, looks uncomfortable, but still in that infested bed with those nutcases. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. And Anthony, you were right behind me as I was saying it. The parts are a critical part of this. She's back.
I'm not even sure if I'm talking over time because my computer's doing something really weird, but my best friend, who has an uncanny ability to call me in the middle of this podcast, forgot I don't have internet in my new place. So I'm using my phone as a hotspot. She just texted me some random reel, and I was like, stop, I'm podcasting. Then she texted me again. Oh, sorry, girl, get off the phone. Yeah, Erica.
Can I call you for 20 minutes? So I was just no, while you were gone, I just went over the acronym that Hairston shared with us, and talk through a couple of things in the aftermath of that. So now that you're back, we can kind of pick back up. And we were briefly talking about Rubio, how Rubio feels being in this ball pit with these measles infected idiots, and whether or not he's going to try to remove himself from the play area and go back on home, because it's a lot. Speaking of a lot, I don't know if this is up on anybody else's radar. I've certainly been looking at it. Elise Stefanik may be pulled back as UN ambassador, and that can only be because of the jeopardy of the House flip. So we've already seen that there at the state level in Pennsylvania, a deeply red district that has not gone Democrat since the 1800s. I think it's 1870 something. It may even be earlier than that. Flipped to blue. Now, again, special election, very few people voting, but still, it's significant. It was like a plus 20, plus 30 district for Trump, and they have now elected a Dem. And so they've shortened the margin in the Pennsylvania State House about control. And when the midterms come, if they're able to flip just 2 more seats, they'll be in control. And I think they only need to flip 1 seat in the Senate in order to put it at a 50-50 where there's a tie break, and the tie break is done by the lieutenant governor, who is
Right.
A Democrat. And then you also have these districts that are filling in blanks right now that are also flipping. And so you had a sister who came in and defeated a white guy, and it's looking like Florida is even a little twitchy in some of their situations. So Elise Stefanik may be being withdrawn, maybe being put on hold or pause, at least because
The chat is saying that it's a done deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's I had seen conflicting reports right before we got on, but yes, it does make sense because that was the seat most likely to flip. Most likely.
Yeah, they haven't. Neither party, honestly, has had an inch to give over the last 8 years, and so everything is super volatile right now. Anyway, I think that everybody's trying to do this race to 2026 and all these special elections and whatnot, and the Democrats always seem to be coming from a grassroots standpoint of somebody decided to step up for the greater good in their local areas. The Republicans, or at least the MAGA Republicans, have been choosing people and hoping that the local hate mongers will say, this is the new person that hates what we hate. But they've pissed off their base with all of this removal of Social Security and disrespect of the veterans. And then they pretending you didn't just fuck up majorly with this signal thing, and then running around getting rid of all these veteran jobs, all of these government jobs. They're not going to be there, especially at the local level. They're not going to be where you think they are. Justin Trudeau does indeed have an inch to give. And I bet you Melania knows. If you ever seen the way she looks at him, like she would risk it all for him.
And listen, Justin's free now. He ain't got no government job.
Justin out here slanging bagel. He is slanging French bread baguettes all across
Canada.
Right.
He got all the poutine.
Poutine ski.
And while we're talking about people who are pissed at the administration, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my Cubano brothers who have been removed forthwith from their cushy protections that Biden set up for them.
Chan, go to bed.
Oh no, more. Let's keep it going. It's after dark, baby. So that's what we're doing. Oh,
she did look at Barack like she want to take a while on the dark side, for real.
Listen. So what we have going on, and we're just about at an hour. And my parents are in town, so I'm trying to keep this short. Plus, Joy is Joy's got a couple sips to go. I will say I did purchase the Madam bourbon from that woman-owned distillery that also created Fascist Tears vodka, and I actually cracked it open. I finally had an occasion where I wanted to sample it, and I did. And it's actually very smooth and delicious. And we also ordered some Uncle Nearest, Uncle Nearest, Nearest Green, which is their green label, which looks more like a Jack Daniel's bottle. And, the height of irony, we talked about it, that Jack Daniel's is actually ending its DEI stuff when you were literally founded by Black excellence. So, incidentally, thank you, Sam, for bringing up town hall meetings. I was actually called out of the blue yesterday by my representative, Brad Sherman. And I guess it's because I'm an Act Blue contributor, whatever. I was called with a notification. It was a robocall, but I was called and added into the group chat. And I put myself in queue to ask a question. And not group chat, I'm sorry, town hall meeting, telephonic town hall meeting. And I entered myself to be able to ask a question, and they accepted that I was going to, hey, thank you, Sam, that I was going to ask a question. And then as I was driving, I just got deleted. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to call back. I've been on this damn call 40 minutes and I'm just not going to call back. I was too busy. But there is an in-person town hall that's actually right around. It's not very far from me. So my intention is to make sure that I actually get there to participate, because I haven't done one. And I've done some things with Brad Sherman, but I've never been to a town hall. And it kind of feels like this is the moment, even though I'm in California and I am, frankly, not as impacted by some of the foolishness that's going around in other parts of the country, just because of the strength of our economy in California and the strength of our governor. And I live in a city with a Democratic mayor and And my representative is a Democrat. And so I've been accustomed to his work. But I do need more of our Democratic reps to get this fire in your belly and get some media training. And the thing I want to say to you all, if I can go on a soapbox just for a second, we are at a time, Democratic representatives, when you need to understand how media works. The right is convinced that lying and prevaricating and misinforming is the way to keep their folks in check. You don't even have to lie. You just have to forcefully tell the truth. That's all you need to do. And you will find that there are Democrats, voters, young activists, people who want to advocate for causes that are important to us, who will follow you if you show a spine. But if you're going to sit here and pretend like it's business as usual and Chuck Schumer can play games of how things need to go and the specific rules and all these sorts of things, that's not going to get it done, folks. We need you to jump in. We need you to be as combative with your truth as Marjorie Taylor Greene is with her lies, as Tulsi Gabbard is with her lies, as Carolyn Levitt is with her lies. And if you're not getting traction on MSNBC and CNN, then you need to go into the internet. You need to go on YouTube shows. You need to create clips that can become viral with people who are experts in doing that sort of thing. So you can get some counter narratives out there. That's my little soapbox moment. Dems, get on it.
And, I would add a different moment because, in addition to being a DE&I subject matter expert in my daily life, I also do leadership skills training for a lot of different companies. And so I am constantly teaching a class called Having Difficult Conversations. And it's not about, it's basically how to say, fuck your feelings and keep your job. And so what I tell people is if someone is having an emotional response, they go through the stages of grief because whatever their emotional response is, that emotion is tied to them fearing losing or fearing letting go of something. And so if they're fearing either one of those, they're going to start with the anger. Who are you? How dare you? Blah, 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 blah. And then the deflection. Well, what about them? What about Chicago? Well, what about Biden and Hunter Biden and her emails? All of this. Then it goes into bargaining. Okay, so yeah, maybe this happened, but none of the rest of it. I'll give you a little bit if you'll just shut up. Then the sadness and the tears. How dare you? I'm trying my best, blah, blah, blah. And I'm here for the country and a bunch of other shit that's not true. And ultimately, if you can keep going past them emotionally dumping on you, you get to the last stage of grief is acceptance. They accept that there's no way out of this. They accept that they got to put up with it. And so when I tell leaders what they need to do about this, I tell them, if someone starts crying on you, go ahead and get it out. You done? Because we're going to keep going with this, right? If someone says, well, what about this? That has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. Stick to the subject, stick to the thing at hand, and come with points. You cannot combat somebody who's being irrational with always and nevers and, well, one times. February 8th, you did this. March 21st at 6:45, you did this. January 12th, you did this. Hit them with things that are undeniable and don't let them prevail. Don't let the right loves to talk over people to try to get them to shut up. I got all night. I ain't got nothing but time and smoke. And we're going to take some time and you're going to get this smoke and never let them get you off your talking points. I know this as someone who has never held a political office. Why do I know this better than the Democratic leadership? And that's what bothers me about them. Now, here's the thing. I also think that the Democrats spend too much time trying to be nice, or trying to take the high road. The high road don't go nowhere, right? So one of the things I've noticed it recently, because I will admit that Jasmine Crockett's Hot Wheels thing was a little bit like, girl, I will admit that. However, let's stop trying to censure her and focus on the fact that we had a massive security breach. Let's keep the conversation there. Don't let her small gaffe be a distraction. She's not she made her statement. She said what she said. Texas hates him too, and so let's be consistent and let's just go ahead and get over that. Normally I wouldn't say get over an insult. However, it wasn't a disparaging insult. It wasn't disparaging about him being in a wheelchair. It was about the wheelchair. So anyway, my point is they spend so much time clutching their pearls about what she said that they're not thinking about the fact that they are now getting away from and allowing the news cycle to get away from Signalgate. That's where we need to be. Stay there. Get your talking points. At 11:45 this happened, at 12:53 this happened, at 1:02 this happened, blah, blah, blah. And y'all all need to be fired. There needs to be the same way we've seen those videos of like the Fox media and everything repeating the same talking point verbatim over and over again across multiple days. The Democrats need to get like that. What are your talking points about this breach of security? And everybody saying the same thing all the time, everywhere, on every channel, and every platform. That's what needs to happen right now. And I'm seeing that a little bit from a few pockets, but I need Democrats I never heard of to be on TikTok repeating the same message over and over again.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that the one refrain that started to come out in both of the hearings was Hegseth needs to resign or be fired. That was the consistent piece of messaging. Now, whether or not that has a ghost fart's chance of happening is immaterial. If you keep on it, then you keep the conversation on it. And then Fox and the other right wingers have to say, oh, the Democrats are just trying to get him removed. They want him to resign. Well, once you have them talking about resignation, once you talk about them hyping up this controversy, then that's the win. It really doesn't matter. If you rattle him, nobody thinks he stopped drinking anyway. But if you rattle him, then maybe he goes a step too far. Maybe the drinking is in public. Maybe he's seen with a scotch at a bar. Maybe he's seen with 4 scotches at a bar. Maybe a bartender who happens to be a secret Democrat is like, here's the receipt.
That would be great.
4 Bushmills. He was only here 30 minutes. So, things, nobody likes being in that scrutiny. And this is a guy, what is he, on his 3rd wife? He's had stuff going on in the past.
I promise you he's not on her.
Oh.
None of them are.
No. So, what else do you have, Joy, before we settle up and you finish that pour?
The only other thing that I was thinking about is something I mentioned. You know what? I'm gonna call an audible, and I want to change direction completely.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about the male loneliness epidemic.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because it ties back to what we're seeing in our political arena. I'm gonna tell you why. Everything, I try my best to keep my social media on K-dramas and K-pop and stray kids and kittens and puppies. I try my best to keep it there. But the minute I see a video of, something, and next thing I know, my feed is overwhelmed with people saying, why are men like this? And men saying, you stupid, and I'm gonna ram my, yo, chill. What's wrong with you? I ain't taught you better. Yo, you need to calm down. What I'm seeing over and over again is a bunch of, I'll say 40 and under. I'm not even going to say it's just the young people. I'm going to say 40 and under who are unhappy with their current relationship status. They're single. They don't want to be single, but they don't want to change either. They want to remain single and find some woman stupid enough to come wipe their ass, clean their house, give them sex whenever they want to, and cook dinner. Ain't nobody doing that. You know why? Because we have our own houses, our own bills, our own issues. Why would I come and clean up after you? I'm not your mama. And why you want to fuck your mama anyway? That's a whole weird thing. But They're calling it the male loneliness epidemic, and they're blaming women for it because they refuse to recognize that they need to step their own game up. Now, here's how this applies to politics. During the last election, I know that a few people here and there pockets have talked about how it was rigged and how maybe it was stolen, et cetera. But let's not underestimate the red pill network. Yes, the MAGA sphere. Let's not underestimate how many people between 35 and 25 felt like they're due some woman that they don't see coming. Where is my slave servant female sex toy? Right. And so in looking for that, somehow they got it in their mind that if they take away women's bodily autonomy, in some places, they're trying to challenge women's right to vote, everything, so that they can control women, so they can finally get laid. Don't underestimate how that shifted the tide and the discussion in a lot of places that are not part of the common discourse. So we've got an issue right now with a bunch of lonely guys voting for that whole my body, your body, my choice bullshit they were talking about. That's them. And there's a huge pool of them across every race, across every state. And all of them secretly said, maybe Trump will help me, bag this chick. So Sam says a lot of them are just gay and can't say it. You know what? There's a whole school of thought that a lot of men hate women. They like sex with women, but they hate women, which is why they tend to objectify women as a piece of ass. They don't want the rest of her, just a piece of ass. So, yeah.
It's really interesting to me as you talked about this, and I'm drawing some new context in the popular success of The Handmaid's Tale, which, can you imagine? It's probably been 3 years since that show was on TV, and it had like 6 seasons. And this from a book that wasn't that long, and from a movie that basically went from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. They filled in 6 seasons worth of context and then expanded the story on the other side. As much as I think the creators of that show intended it to be a cautionary tale, intended it to be a warning signal, I think, to your point, a good measure of the success of that show was fantasy projection from some of these lonely men. They're sitting there looking like, if I wait long enough, I can be a 5'4" guy in a black suit who can get a woman. And all I have to do is be a loyal stooge to somebody like Trump, and I'll be able to absolutely control this person and get what I want, and not have to worry about these persnickety women encroaching on my manness.
Bro, you don't even have to go that far. So I will remind you, since people love Bridgerton, I will remind you that in the Victorian and previous era, if a man and a woman were caught alone in a room for more than a few minutes, he had to marry her because she was assumed to be compromised, right? Because women had no rights. They were property of their father before they became property of their husband. So now let's fast forward to, we'll just pick on Texas and the ridiculous restrictions on abortion and the ability to still marry a child in a lot of states in the South. And it's not just the South. There's a lot of people with child bride stuff on them. We condemn African nations for the child brides, but do the same thing in Mississippi, right? But the evolution of law, or the creation of laws that say even if a child is born from non-consensual sex, that the father of that child still has rights in that child's life, and the mother can't get an abortion. Now you put all this together, and you got some pimply faced incel following a cheerleader home, raping her, getting her pregnant, and being able to be in her life for 18 years. That is the fantasy that they're going for. That's why they're so violent. That's why they're planning on, your body, my choice. They mean that shit. They mean it with their whole chest, because they don't have to work for it. They don't have to be good people. They don't even have to provide for her, really. They just have to stick around long enough, stalk her, ruin her life, and then
they good.
And then they good. If you think they're not thinking that way, I thought that way. The minute I saw those coming together, that was the pattern that formed in my mind, was this is what they want. They want to be able to control women that they otherwise could never even talk to. All they got to do is follow you home and you belong to me. That's why they voted for Trump. And so, like
Chan makes a really good point about how the alienation of interpersonal contact through the mechanism of social media makes it difficult to even establish societal interactive norms.
Right. And so, like you said, it ends up much worse for guys because women have friend networks. Men could also have friend networks, but here's where toxic masculinity enters the chat. You know, having a homeboy that you just kick it with is gay, right? Can't do this. It's gay. Wiping your ass. When did that become gay, right? When did cutting your fingernails and shaving become like, they've gone so far down the toxic masculinity hole that they're basically saying, if you're not a caveman, you're not a real man. And cavemen was beating women over the heads and kidnapping them. So we're back to that. You know, but they could have male friend networks. They all need therapy. Women need therapy too. I'm not trying to say it's unidirectional, but this inability to talk about your feelings, that's what's so strong about women's networks, is we will get together and cry about stuff. We will get together and air out our own grievances with each other. We may talk it to death. You know, we may, you know, I remember this one girl got mad at me and she set time to come to my house on Sunday afternoon so we could have it out, right? We remained friends after that because we had it out. Dudes just be like, I ain't heard from him in 2 years. I don't know what happened to him. Or me and my boys, all we do is focus on something else, like the game or you know, the video game or something, or football or whatever, and not talk to each other. Y'all, again, that's a y'all problem. Y'all need to do better. Create your own friend groups and be real in those friend groups. Stop shaming people for going to therapy or for needing somebody to talk to. Stop telling little boys don't cry. All of this starts there, you know, and it ends up where we are now with people not being able to make good relationships, not being able to interact with any gender because they don't know how to be true to themselves, and they're afraid that somebody will make fun of them if they are. Matter of fact, this also goes back to an old adage that says men are afraid that women will laugh at them. And women are afraid that men will kill them.
Yeah.
And so that's how that goes. And so at the end of the day, get you some good friends, talk some of your shit out. Or if that doesn't work, get a therapist. They're not that expensive. And some of them are covered under insurance, at least the first three or four visits. Get yourself together. And then when you feel better about yourself and better about your situation, you're able to make some at least decent connections. Every girl you meet doesn't have to be somebody you're trying to get with. You can have some female friends that might check for you and help you better yourself, because we always trying to help you. Do all of this, and maybe the incel fantasy MAGA party doesn't become so attractive. You know, that is what it's the lowest of the low-hanging fruit, is to decide, I don't want to do nothing about myself. I'm going to make life miserable for these women so that they got no choice but to choose me. But here's the kicker. We're still not choosing you. We're still picking the bear. And you're going to have to fight us. And more women are learning self-defense because they also see the writing on the wall. And self-defense is no more, it's not the pepper spray and the run and the yell fire. No. It's the guns, it's the tasers, it's the Taekwondo takedowns. Come fuck around if you want to.
You know, it's probate season in the D9 community. And it strikes me that one of the things that you said about peer groups for men is that I have found recently in my matriculation in my alumni chapter, so that's mostly grown men. We have some younger fellas that come into the chapter, but mostly people who are in their 30s and greater. And when you can find a genuine relationship, especially within the frat, it can be a good thing. When you're an undergrad, you know, there are some behaviors that are perhaps negative that can be reinforced. But once you carry on into your adult life, the fraternity can really be a place where men can develop and foster relationships because they're predicated on something else, that some of the stigma of that might exist in non-fraternal male relationships is reduced, because we're bros. And so, you know, this is my guy. I can talk to him, you know, especially if it's your Sans, line brother, whatever ship. if you have gone through that with another man, especially a Black man, it's so much more impressing and important for, I think, Black men in this country. But if you can do that, then it can create a pathway for you to normalize those sorts of relationships and even enter and consider a therapeutic intervention, because you don't feel as afraid of confronting your feelings. You don't feel as afraid of talking to another man in whom you might find a kindred spirit. So a lot, this is, I got to tell you, go ahead, Joy.
Phil, I'm stealing this. Red pill or lead pill? You choose one.
Woo! Woo! Handle biz. I gotta say, in Sharpies, I hope you appreciate this. I've really been enjoying the direction of the show in these last several weeks. The numbers are up, and we keep getting very positive feedback. We really, really do appreciate everything that you do. And if you like the show, please like this episode. Please subscribe. Please hit the notification. It really does help the algorithm. The more people we can get to start engaging, the more the algorithm will start to push it out. And, you know, we would love to be in Booker Square territory. We would love to be in parking lot pimping territory. We would love to be in Roland Martin territory. We would love to be in Uncle Dam territory. So whatever you can do, if you believe in the show, if you enjoy the show, please continue to spread the word. We really, really do appreciate it. We love doing this show for you. We love the commentary and the interaction between our Sharpies. And I got to tell you, I'm starting to think that sometime over the summer, we might actually need to, instead of just doing a show, we might need to do more of like an interactive webinar, town hall thing with a number of different Sharpies. Those of you who are willing to come on and be a part of the conversation on camera, where we can really do some stuff. Maybe we can do some in real life interactions for those of you who are on the coasts and everywhere in between. So let's see. That's right. Protecting my energy, drinking my water, and minding my business. So this is what we're really about. We want to continue to create that sense of community, and we want to celebrate with you, continue to build with you. And Joy, do you have anything else you want to add?
I echo everything that you're saying, and we're trying to get better with taking full advantage of all our social media handles that we have out there. But we put some clips out last week. We're gonna try to do that again sometime soon. And so if you see the clips come through on our Instagram or TikTok page, share those out, because it's a lot smaller than the whole show, and just tell somebody you'll like and follow. And we'll try to make it as easy for you as possible. But we want to continue to grow the show, and maybe, you know, like we say, we want to get into that Uncle Dan Booker Square arena. Maybe one of them will come talk to us, and that would be so freaking awesome.
Sunham Show, looking at you, bro.
I'm gonna tell you, son, if you come on this show, I'm gonna holler at you. I'm just let you know that right now. You will be hollered at. So
shots fired.
Understand that.
So with that, I will say I'm Tom Cunningham.
I'm Joy Stevens.
And this is Steel Sharpens Steel. Love you, everybody.